Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello once again, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 137th iteration of the show, Elite Edition. No, Elite. Elite Edition.
The illegible elite.
Recorded on the 19th of April, 2015.
Hey, you got it right this time.
I got the year right.
It only took you a third of the year to go through.
Yeah, that makes it January. Yeah, 1/3. We're 1/3 of the way through the year. Yeah, I guess all our university student listeners will be writing exams, or maybe they're already done.
Everyone else who's taken the exams but doesn't have to anymore will have a little moment of remembrance. I don't think anyone who went to college or university doesn't think about April at some point and go, at least I don't have to do exams right now. So I don't know if you celebrate it, go get yourself some cupcakes. It's like, yay, I don't have to take exams, let's have cupcakes. But I know I at least think about it from time to time in April and go, yeah, at least I don't have that on my plate.
Indeed. These two crazy voices that you're hearing this week is Ryan Kirkby on one microphone.
And Josh Trelevin on the other.
That's we're the opposite of what you just heard, so.
Don't worry, you'll figure it out eventually. If not, you can just go back to a previous iteration and double check.
Yeah. Is it Earth Day or something too?
That should be tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe it's always the 20th of April.
Okay.
Stealing the fire, my birthday.
And I forget, something else is coming out on April 20th, but now I've already forgotten what it is. But
that's okay, because there's bigger stuff coming out on May 1st.
Yeah, what do we have on May?
We're on countdown to Avengers 2. And it's looking good. It's looking really good.
Avengers 2 is coming out.
I've been waiting for it for a while. And yay, this is finally out. One less thing to have to wait for. Mm-hmm. I imagine it's going to be almost impossible to get a babysitter on the 1st of May. Because most of them should be booked up or actually going to try and see the movie themselves.
Oh, you think it's that big, hey? All the babysitters. Well,
the babysitters would be of the prime age category.
Or all the
babysitters viewing
all the ones you know, anyways, I
guess. Well, that's the thing is, it's it may have to be that I go watch the movie, and then, my wife goes and watches the movie, and that we don't get a chance to watch it together, but, at least that way we don't have to go hunting for a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, the first Saturday in May is Free Comic Book Day.
Free Comic Book Day?
Free Comic Book Day after an Avengers theatrical release. I imagine it is going to be a very busy Free Comic Book Day. Superheroes are going to be so heavily on everyone's mind. Yeah. So I thoroughly encourage everyone to try and get there early.
That feels well-timed on Marvel's part. I don't know if that's something they would...
Marvel is notorious for good timing on that sort of stuff. I wouldn't surprise me if they made sure. It's it's just instead of July 1st, why don't we make it May 1st? And that way Free Comic Book Day, everyone's thinking about that. Then they're looking at our comics. Because, most of their money these days is coming from the movies. Avengers, the first Avengers made $1 billion. Could you imagine how many comics you'd have to sell to, net $1 billion? That's almost unprecedented. So yeah, they're clearly aware this is the movies are where we're making our wonderful swimming pools of cash money. But all the good storylines, the stuff that they're working up for, that all happened in the comics. Sometimes 20 years ago, sometimes 30 years ago, sometimes a little bit more recent, depending on the storyline they're going with. Mm-hmm. But all the storylines they've been using have been heavily tested, heavily vetted in the comic book format. And Marvel is not stupid. Not anymore. They made some foolish decisions when they were teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. It's like, okay, we'll sell the rights, to these characters to Sony for movie stuff, and we'll sell this one over here to Fox for movie rights and all that stuff. But that helps help them get by until it's like, hey, we can make a lot of money now. So now the House of Marvel's, doing good. But, they're smart people, and they realize if, this is making us money, how we're going to keep coming up with more storylines. Test it out in the comic book format.
Sure. And I
see what sells well, see what doesn't.
I mean, the reason they can make so much money on the films, well, for one, I mean, they're good films, and they're well promoted and so on and so forth.
They're made by people who love and care about the characters. You can't exactly say the same about the Spider-Man stuff or the Fantastic Four to the same degree. I'm sure there's someone at Sony that's just absolutely nuts about Spider-Man as a commercial product. But as a character, how do we incorporate him into a greater universe sort of thing? Don't think it's quite the same level as the House of Marvel.
So I guess it's not enough to use stories that have a beloved fan base or are beloved by their fan base, have a rabid fan base, sort of.
Yeah, I've seen this stuff from the conventions. Rabid qualifies.
Yeah, so it's not enough to have just a lot of people who love the comics. I mean, even though that is. If you do it right, that's a built-in audience. That's why you can make $1 billion, is because so many people have experienced this comic.
And they loved
story.
Every individual movie sort of thing that led up. It's like, oh, hey, it's like all of these characters from the movies I love all in one movie? Well, don't I be stupid not to go. Take my $1 billion, says the world. But no, I mean, one of the biggest complaints I believe people had about the Spider-Man movie that last came out, the second Spectacular Spider-Man, I believe it was that they veered away from some of the character stuff. Admittedly, the Rhino would look pretty goofy as he exists. He is a man in a rhinoceros furry suit. It gives him super strength and super toughness and all that, but yeah, I imagine without a little work he'd look a little freaking ridiculous. Just absolutely can't take him for serious. Because it doesn't translate. I mean, you can see a guy running around in a rhino outfit in a comics and go, oh my goodness, he's a serious guy. You see that in a live action, you're not going, oh my god, no, the rhino, no. So I can understand why they try to make things a little bit better, but having it be a guy in a giant, mecha suit, a little too far away from the base. And the further you move away from the base of how things are, the more you get criticisms and complaints. And then it's like, well, why don't you just create your own superhero and do all this stuff? I mean,
well, couldn't you be a Conan the Barbarian kind of rhino suit, with furs and chains hanging down? That would be kind of a cool way
I could see him working very well with Kraven the Hunter as a lackey that way, because that's kind of Kraven the Hunter's things. I'm wearing bits and pieces of all the greatest things I ever killed.
Yeah, so a rhino suit like that.
So I could see that working out a little bit better, but you really do have to try and veer away from the guy in a suit of pajamas. Because that's what, if you were to Google up, Spider-Man Rhino and see the image from the comics and all that, yeah, he does kind of look that way.
Yeah.
So, I understand them trying to update and change and make it look a little better. Well, at least for the, live action format. That said, you still got to keep it as close to base as possible. Make the suit a real leather hide, or faux leather. I don't
like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, like that.
Something like that. Yeah, put the horns on there. Make it look like something a person could see and believe that this is something that could give a person super strength and toughness.
Sure, or just believe that somebody would put it on. You can change details around if you want. Maybe the suit doesn't necessarily grant him the toughness, but he has to wear it for some reason. I mean,
when he wears it, he believes in himself enough to gain the power.
Yeah, like Dumbledore's feather.
Yeah, I don't know. Still, I don't know. Out of all the complaints they said of how much they change things, that's the one I can forgive the most.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Because, Rhino, it's a giant mechanical, mecha armor thing. Oh, okay, I'll give it a shot, but apparently they just used them as a one-off note sort of thing. So it's why'd you even bother to?
Well, yeah, I think we're going to get into this a little bit more later in today's podcast. But that is a bit of an issue with superhero movies, especially like superhero movies that take place in a universe, is sometimes you throw in all these other like little things. Oh, here's an Easter egg or something. But sometimes I wonder if that's a bit too either distracting or just like weird when you throw in like, oh, here's this awesome character with this awesome suit, and then he's gone in the next scene. And then
that's the thing. It's done very subtly. It's like a nod to the people that pay attention and love the character. The first episode of The Flash, the TV series that's gone now, watch it. It's great. I thoroughly encourage it. 14 dwarves out of 13. It's that good. In the first one, like, they're touring the destroyed, or, well, semi-destroyed, Star Labs facility, and there's a cage in the background with the label Grodd, which is a reference to Gorilla Grodd, the psychic ape, and yeah, they put a little bit more later on. That's what, like a first stepping stone to bringing in the character. First they make a mention, yeah, we had a gorilla here named Grodd, and then later on it's, Harrison Wells, the director at Star Labs, talking with, a military man about, trying to develop psychic powers for the military. It's like, well, I won't let you do that to this animal, sort of thing. And then later on, yeah, they actually go so far as to show an ape that can think into your mind. So yeah, he doesn't actually speak, but you can hear what he says. He's intelligent and all that, and it's like, whoa. So, those initial, just throw some stuff up in the background is an excellent stepping stone to bringing it into the full circle, because that way it doesn't feel like, oh, and then in this movie they just included a psychic ape. It's like, no, they actually referenced it earlier on, so that they bring it in slowly, and that way it does also get the sense of the grander scope of at least one hero's, rogues gallery.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm thoroughly okay with that concept. And admittedly, like The Flash, a lot of his rogues gallery can be reduced down to person with a gun that does something special.
Right.
So, yeah, I can see them, say, okay, we got to make sure, this guy looks good here, we got to bring it in and make sure he's got enough personality and swing it. But first you bring in a little bit, so make a mention here, make a note there, and build them up to the person that they become. Like Captain Cold, maybe his main rogues villain guy, didn't start off, I'm Captain Cold, I walk around in a park all the time, and I shoot, cold rays, haha. No. First it was, him as he's like a serial bank robber. Whenever he needs the money, he does it. He's so precise and all that it's impossible to catch him because he knows the system that well. And then later on, hey, he gets a gun that fires cold. And then later on, he's wearing the parka around with him. And then in the last time they had him, he makes a deal with the Flash, sort of thing. If you're really as good as you say you are, Snart, because that's the guy's name. He's not actually called Captain Cold. That's not his real name. It's just Snart. But it's like, if you're really as good as you claim, then don't kill anybody. I could do that. So he becomes he becomes step by step the villain who everyone would recognize as Captain Cold, and that's a nice thing is the not just then all of a sudden he walks in with a parka and a frost gun, ha ha ha, but he doesn't kill anyone. Why? Well, it's like, okay, that's just how we're starting. No, step by step by step. And that's, heck, that's the description for the Avengers. First this movie, then that movie, then this movie. And technically they dropped out the Hulk movie from continuity sort of thing, because it didn't really work out. But whatever, they got Mark Ruffalo, and he is a great Hulk apparently now. An awesome Banner and a great Hulk, so I don't know if they'll make another movie of him, or if they're just going to have him in as like a secondary hero in other people's, movies, whatever. I'm doing okay with that either way. But yeah, it's like, okay, we've got all these steps here placed in. Now we've got the greater universe, fold it all together. Hey, look, Avengers movie, $1 billion.
Well, yeah, I guess it works. It seems to work.
It's a winning formula. That said, DC Warner is working the other way. They're starting with the whole Justice League thing, and then they're going to, kind of dole out the individual movies to all the heroes. It's a bold plan. I really hope it works for them, because I think there's a lot of good superheroes in the DC. Properly done, I think Wonder Woman could be an excellent one. Batman's almost never failed. You have to put bat nipples on a suit to get him to fail. And even then, statistically...
I wouldn't blame the nipples.
They are endemic of a greater camp problem he has had a history of. Superman, people see him as a little boring, but done right. Superman's greatest power is the power to inspire, not to beat somebody up harder than they can beat him up. So done right, a Superman story where he makes the people around him better because he inspires them. I think that could be a story for all time. That's the key you want for a Superman movie. The Flash, the Green Arrow, the Green Lantern. Okay. I don't blame anybody on the Green Lantern movie except maybe the editors and maybe some of the script writers. Because the storyboard editor, like if you see some of the extra scenes there, things make like a little bit better sense and how everything fits together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a bit of a problem with the editing that I think could have helped out. Maybe there's some tightening up of the script. I don't blame Ryan Reynolds at all. He was great. He was excellent for the role he was in. That said, I'm kind of interested to see how the Jon Stewart version goes, but that's not until like 2020. So, yeah,
wow.
yeah. Apparently, when you crash and burn that bad, they say, okay, we're not going to like abandon you forever, but we are going to let the smoldering pile of ruin just cool down before we collect something from the wreckage.
Okay.
There's a lot, and it's not even the primary heroes. I think there's a lot of great secondary heroes in the DC universe. I am very intrigued to see how they would do a Martian Manhunter. If only because 1997's attempt at doing a Justice League movie wound up with him with very little powers whatsoever. So, interesting to see how it goes, and I hope for the best for both of them, because I don't want one side to win over the other. I want both sides to do excellent so I can reap the benefits of both sides getting great.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
A floating, the rising tide floats all boats. And that's what I want, a high tide. Not half high tide, half low tide.
Yeah, coming up this weekend, also, in addition to all those other things, there's also a role-playing event here in Victoria, so for our listeners who are in Victoria, I do encourage you to come out to Roll for Initiative, which is what we're calling it is Roll for Initiative. It's just a D&D gaming that's open for anyone who wants to attend.
It is 5th edition.
It is, yes, it'll be 5th edition, and it's once a month, so it's this coming Saturday at 4:00 p.m. It's at a little place. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's near my...
If you don't have time to scroll down to the notes and all that, you can hit Google. You should be able to Google it, Bing it, Yahoo it. It should come up.
Yeah, we're working on getting it a little bit higher up in the
SEO
rankings.
sort of thing?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like Roll for Initiative Victoria should pop at least up page 1. It should be that.
Yeah, I think you should be able to find it.
If not in the first 3 links. Well, after you get past the ads. Yeah, it should be up there.
Let me see, am I going to be, I think I'm probably going to be there, but I haven't actually,
RSVP'd or anything?
I haven't RSVP'd yet, so, and I have to check my bank account balances at the moment, but I think I will be there this week, probably. But I encourage everyone who is in Victoria, or if you're, stopping by Victoria for that weekend, come on out to Roll for Initiative. Everyone is welcome. You play some D&D, you make some good friends, you have some pizza. I don't know.
Get the fat loot.
I don't know if we sorted out the food situation, because it was going to be like a group chip in for pizza, but anyway, we'll figure it out when we get there.
Go down there, but bring a snack with you.
Or just, there's like restaurants across the street, so...
Well, I guess it depends on your taste or thing. I mean, Subway you can always eat fresh, but sometimes you're like, I'm doing gamer food here, so something that says, there's too much sauce on my Subway subs no matter what I get, so I want something dry, so I can bring myself a bag of potato chips. Or no, potato chips cause too much grease and oil, so I'm bringing wafers or something like that. I'm bringing goldfish crackers. Because it's crunchy, it's salty, and it leaves very little mess behind. So it's up to you if you're bringing a snack. Figure out what you want.
Very good.
Everybody needs their own gamer food sort of style, and it's okay to figure out what yours is.
Should we talk about what else we've been?
What have you been up to this week, Josh? What have you done that didn't really happen?
What have I done that didn't? I guess I've played some more Minecraft. I've been refining my Nether tunnel pathways. My Nether.
Your Nether web?
My tunnels through hell, through the D&D.
You're boring
Minecraft
through hell. Yes.
So that's that's a lot of work.
So did you decide to go with the obsidian style, or?
I was doing that last time too, wasn't I?
I think you were thinking about it, because, I mean, it's immune to gas blasting.
Yeah. Well, there's just way too much. My world is too big. I created this world 2, 3, 4 years ago, I think, something like that. I've been playing it a while. And I made it large biomes, so everything is very far apart, very spread out. So it's
not necessarily a bad thing.
I like it, but yeah, it makes...
Well, that way when you're in like the heart of a desert, you feel like you're in a desert. It's not like, I can see the ocean, I can see a forest, and there's like some tundra over there. It does feel like I'm in the middle of an arid desert wasteland. Or you're deep in the jungle, you're like, I am so lost, I will never get out of here. My only hope is to start building a new house and just live here forever. So, I mean, it does sell the atmosphere of each biome that way.
Yeah, there's that. So I've been playing a bit of Minecraft here and there. Did I mention last time about going to the Victorious Voices Poetry Slam?
No, I don't believe you did mention that.
Okay, I think that must have happened in that was this week.
This ensuing week.
So there was it's called Victorious Voices, the Poetry Slam. It was all of the poets at this week's version.
And so a poetry slam is where you get together and you go up and you share poetry. It's not actually like a fight. You don't slam, to see whose poetry is the best. Right?
How to describe it? It's poetry reading with emotion. And it's supposed to be a little bit hip hop influenced, like a little bit rap battle influenced.
Kind of got a street style.
You're supposed to have a little bit of attitude along with it. And it happens in a cafe downtown. On Broad Street. It's Lacy Lou's is the name of it. But I can put a link in the show notes too for that if anybody's interested. I watched some poets do, and that I don't know if that counts as fiction, but yeah, poets do some poetry.
Well, it's a very interesting version of fiction that most people don't decide to realize is, because I mean, like almost anything in culture is technically fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, you experienced it and you shared it with us. I think it counts.
So let me see. So what are my impressions of it? Well, I don't remember the names of the poets in particular. But
that way they're like anonymous and just completely, like open slates for you.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. That's all, I guess that's all I can say. It's an experience that you kind of have to have live too. It's a little bit. They have a YouTube channel too, but I don't find the YouTube videos that compelling. The sound wasn't that great on them. Not to diss the person,
the sound guy or anything
recording it. It's just a camcorder, so
you got to be there. It's not a spectator sport in that sense. It's a live action sport.
And it helps if you can sort of.
So tell me, like at the end, like of the poetry thing, you actually clap or you do that snapping of fingers you keep seeing all over the place?
Well, it's funny because Victoria seems to have developed its own it has its own little culture around it. So there is snapping, but there's also cheering and clapping.
Dig it.
And I don't know if it's because we can't make up our minds of what we want to do, or because the way I understand, I when I first heard about snapping for poetry, is that you do that instead of clapping because clapping is too disruptive. Instead of because you don't want to. It
kind of breaks the mellow mood you're trying to set for a lot of those poetry beats.
Yeah, and so those beat poetries, it's very serious, it's very intense, it's very dark. And so yeah, you snap because cheering would be too too much of an expression.
And that way, I mean, when you clap and cheer, there's varying levels of that. But when you snap your fingers, there's really only the one sort of style. I mean, you can do it faster, you can do it slower, but there's not really oh man, they're snapping so loud, they love me, man.
Yeah. And the other thing though is poetry slams, for example, would be more to the end of they would not do snapping because it's more clap and cheer and be excited and boisterous about get it. It's like hip hop, right? It's this is, or almost like rock and roll.
The live soul of things, and you gotta be raw. You gotta be there. You gotta feel it.
Yeah,
you feed back from the audience that way.
And then what we have going on, at least in the couple that I went to, is they do both. They just sometimes they snap, sometimes they clap.
It's freeform audience participation and applause.
And I think that's really neat to see that sort of combination. It's just do whatever you feel like doing. Do whatever strikes
So
you.
normally you just snap your fingers, but dude, if you really got to clap and whistle, do it, man.
Yeah.
Play your heart out.
I don't know if that's normal for, like, if that's how people do poetry now.
No, you haven't gone like coast to coast for the poetry slams.
Yeah, I haven't been everywhere yet. But I mean, I think that'd be fun to see, like, different how people do it around the world. You probably could, like, just enter any city and poetry slam into YouTube, and you can probably find somebody doing some event.
But it's never the same as actually being there.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's why you got to be there. Even if you can't come to the Victoria one, you know, like find one in your local area. Give it a shot.
Absolutely, yeah. Highly recommend.
What do you have to lose? Like some hours of your life? I mean, you don't take time off of work to go see it if you know, that's how it goes. But you know, if you can swing it, be there, man.
Well, absolutely, and you can go as an audience member, and you can be as a supportive member of the community, and just sit back and let it wash over you, and take it in and embrace it. But you can also, like, usually they'll have an open mic where if you happen to have be a poet yourself, or even a budding poet, or even you've never been a poet and you just feel like, oh, maybe I want to try, you literally can just sign up for their open mic, depending, like, they usually haven't, like,
but try
listed.
not to plagiarize. I mean, if you want to like do Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, don't expect huge applause.
Well,
unless you read it just the right way. And get like all 6 verses, because most people haven't heard 2 through 6. Go look that up on Wikipedia. They got some nice stuff there.
I imagine you could Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. You could probably get away with. I wouldn't want to do like some other more recent poet's work. But
unless you're like you want to try and go for like a master's sort of thing, like find some like Jack Kerouac sort of poetry and go in there.
Well, I wouldn't.
That might be appreciated if done right. If done wrong, it might fall a little flat.
Here's what you can do. Like, if you're ever in doubt about plagiarism, so I've been thinking about this a little while, is all you have to do is cite it, and then like you might get in a little bit of trouble, or
Well, just say this means a lot to me. I like to make sure everyone hears it at least every once in a while. So
yeah, but all you have just say who wrote it. Just say this is a piece that, and people will probably, if it's Jack Kerouac, there will be people at a poetry slam who will be quite familiar with, and they'll know it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I recognize that.
Well, here's the interesting thing is you want to see a comparison for something like this. Just Google up like over in YouTube like The Raven and see various celebrities doing like Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven and see how they do it. I've seen John Delancey, I've seen Christopher Walken, James Earl Jones, and they each deliver it in a different way, and none of them are the way I would deliver it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to be said about the delivery and what it means to you. So I think a particularly receptive audience on like something is like, yes, I know this. Oh, but the way you phrased it, the way you turned it around, I found that very interesting because that shows how much like this is the part that really matters to you as opposed to what everyone else thinks is the next verse. And that's where everyone else seems to be caught on. You focused here, and that's interesting.
And like what I like to see in a poetry like presentation or an evening of poetry is I like to see a mix, I guess, of original work and new work. So as long as not everything is just this is the poetry reading night, it's a bit of poetry presentation like of I wrote this, or because I like to see what people actually personally like. I like to hear their own stories. But also, I gotta admit,
I'd be a little weak on that, because for me, poetry has to rhyme. And for me, if it ain't rhyming, it's like, I guess it's poetry. I suppose. But I'm only snapping. I'm not hooting and hollering on this one, you non-rhymer.
I love rhyming in poetry. It is absolutely, like, it just... something in it, like
it catches your ear and
hits
then
my throat or something. It's like
it's like reading Dr. Seuss. Like it gets in your head, and the next thing you know, you catch yourself imitating the beat and the style of Dr. Seuss, and then you have to try and conform your sentences subconsciously sometimes to make it work, and you catch yourself rhyming and working the whole like Seussian limericks in there. It's like whoa. Well, so good poetry's like that. It gets in your brain, man.
Actually, that's something I don't like as much. I do like rhyme. I love rhyme a lot. It's so good. I love when things rhyme. What I don't like is when people slip into a very rhythmic, like, and Dr. Seuss sometimes gets into this, which is a small criticism of overall, I like
He does repeat the same sort of style.
But the rhythm gets a little bit repetitive, and it gets almost like, oh, he's putting you to sleep, which is good if it's a nighttime
for
story.
Kids stuff, yeah.
It's putting you to bed.
Well, that's it. I noticed one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, as I was reading it to my daughter. Not everything fits his traditional rhyme scheme there, so I have to pay attention to which page, and then I switch things up, and then I work it, and da-da-da-da, and the other one's into a nice slower style, and then the third one flows. And that one's got a much more mixed beat than most people assume for Dr. Seuss, and yet they keep trying to read it with the same beat, and it just falls flat.
Yeah, I think you got to watch out for that, because because it feels artificial when you sort of straitjacket your sentences into a rhythm rhyming pattern where it doesn't quite fit. Although, I mean, it can work, and that's the other thing, is creative use of this sort of thing. You can do almost anything.
It helps expand your vocabulary, because it's like, no, that's one syllable too short. What's another word that means
another.
This? Yeah. Okay, that one works, and then you're using words you wouldn't typically use in your lexicon, and then there you go. You've enriched your word power through the purposes of a good rhyming beat. So.
Yeah. So that's how poetry works. Yeah. I think that's what I did. Is I went to a couple of those this week, because there was that sort of a competition going on with high school students.
Dig it.
And yeah. So what have you been up to, Ryan?
Oh my! I've had a few things happen for me this week. I think the first thing is I had a very interesting dream. This week I haven't exactly been 100% healthy. I've been a little under the weather. For instance, one night I went to bed around 9:30, fell asleep by 10, and woke up at 11 o'clock the next day for about 13 hours sleep. And I probably could have slept more if the alarm hadn't gone off. So needless to say, I wasn't exactly, the healthiest person around. I mean, heck, one of these days I went 22 hours between meals, and I wasn't even hungry then.
Okay.
So, I was clearly not at the healthiest and most chipper. And, I wasn't feeling, like my most, happy sort and all that. And then I had a dream. I was traveling through the Rockies, through the park system with my wife and my daughter. And this was the Rockies to the nth degree. The mountains, they rose higher than the buildings in New York City. And they were about as steep as the buildings there, too.
I was going to say, mountains generally are taller than buildings.
No, but these ones just rose steep, and they were like up, like when you go down to like a big city and you're sitting down there, looking up at those buildings, it seems like they stretch up. That's why they're called skyscrapers. They look like they really do go all the way up to the top of the sky and scrape it. Where the mountains were like this. There were still trees on the side, but it was so high up, like the clouds, deep, dark, rumbling clouds that the kind you only really get in the mountainous areas, obscured the tops of all of them. And it was like I like the clouds here in Victoria, but sometimes it looks like somebody just painted the sky with one stroke of a paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas because of the way the mountains work and how the difference in pressures go, you get a lot more volume and style to the clouds in the mountains.
Yeah, mountains are much more stylish.
Oh well, no, it's just that the way that the pressure stuff goes, the clouds they roll and they churn more, and so as opposed to one flat color, you could like stare up at a cloudy sky there and still pick out shapes and images. Okay, it's just that much more dynamic a cloud system that way. There were waterfalls that they descended so far from up high on the mountains that they just effectively disintegrated into particulate, and by the time that they hit the water, they were a fine mist. The water remained undisturbed. There was snow on the side of the road because it's like the mountain system. There's probably snow on most of the passes right now. Mm-hmm. Like elk the size, their shoulder would have gone up to the size, like the height of a telephone pole.
Okay, now that's different.
This was the primordial greater than man sort of, area and all that. And where I'm driving with my wife, my daughter's in the back seat and she's falling asleep because, long car ride, kids will do that. And we figured this is so, beautiful despite the fact it's an overcast day. We're going to pull over and we're going to take some photos. And then that's when it occurred to me. This is symbolism, because I'm in the dream and it clicks with me. This is symbolism. Just because you're under the weather doesn't mean it can't be great and awesome. And so that's what occurs to me is, yes, the mountains and all this stuff here, they're, you can't see the top. They're all underneath these giant, almost like storm clouds. And yet it's so beautiful down there, you want to take photos of it. And that's what occurred to me.
The sun was shining in your dream?
There was sun somewhere, but it wasn't piercing its way through the clouds.
Okay.
These were dark. The clouds that turn trees a darker shade of green. That make everyone just like. Have you ever seen the look of somebody when they furrow their brow in anger, and then the whole thing just kind of gets a little darker? Not like Bilbo Baggins. I'm not some conjurer of cheap tricks sort of thing. Not quite like that.
Okay.
But when somebody gives you a look like that, and everything suddenly gets a little darker, a little more grim, clouds like that. And that's what I realized. Just because I'm under the weather doesn't mean I can't be awesome. And so I went into work today, and despite the fact that I felt like I had a bolt going through my brain and like a Charlie horse waiting to form in my leg, I was awesome. I got compliments. People were loving me just because I kept that image in my mind.
Okay.
And I really wish I'd been able to somehow transfer the photos I took with my wife on the side of the road there into the reality, because it was great photos. That said, I had to step pretty far back to get, all the images of everything, proper. So my wife was just a tiny little speck in the photo.
Okay. And this was along the highway in your dream?
Along a highway, but it's like...
Or did you go to, is it a pull-off stop?
A little pull-off area next to a lake, sort of thing. It's, I grew up near, Lake Louise. Google Lake Louise. That place is just it's a glacier-fed lake, and it is so pristine, almost a turquoise color. Just the sky wishes it could have this much color and style some days.
Sure.
And so that's what it was all like, and it's if I had artistic talent, I would paint the scene. It was magnificent.
Well, you shared it on the podcast in words. So
I wish I could spend 10,000 more words and not describe an ounce of the beauty this had in my mind.
Right.
But I can keep it in my head, and so despite the fact I'm not doing 100% right now, I will try and give you the best, because I have that concept now in my head from that, not prophetic dream, but definitely a mental reorienting dream. I can now think, I'm not feeling great, I'm not 100%, I could probably go to sleep for another 14 or so hours and be, wake up perfectly fine, not hungry, but you know what, that doesn't mean I have to be grumpy and out of sorts. I can still be awesome, even though I'm under the clouds.
It's pretty cool. And I think maybe fevers might have, or whatever you had, a little bit of sickness or whatever it was. I think
my daughter's had a bit of a runny nose, and so it might be something like that going in there. Maybe I got some sinus pressure I'm just ignoring. I haven't had enough time to say, sinuses, how you guys feeling today? No.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of guy I am, so.
I think I've had a bit of that before, too, when you get a fever or something, you have a very vivid dream. And it might be partly to do with that you're not used to sleeping at, you might be sleeping at a different time.
Anytime you have an altered sleep schedule, it's easier to remember your dreams. In my experience, that's how it's been.
Yeah, and so you combine those couple of things, and you get something really your brain just does weird things. I wonder, I've never done drugs, but I don't know. I guess you haven't either.
I've never hallucinated off of anything worse than bad food. Usually of my own creation, I will admit.
But
honestly,
I wonder if doing mushrooms would be like that. I don't know. I've never myself, so
that's the thing. I don't need the drugs to have it. I mean, there have been times I've been in the Rocky Mountains and it did look that good. You're driving through the park system. Go hit the Banff Jasper. Go hit the Kootenay National Park. Any of the parks, if you have the opportunity there. Even on a cloudy day, it's still stop what you're doing and completely just. There goes your train of thought. Just look at that sight. Oh my goodness. And there are stuff where you go tiny little mountain streams just winding themselves down the side. Makes you wish you had even better vision. If I could get cyborg eyes, I would probably do it if for no other reason than the good sights you can see in those parks. It's worth it.
Cool.
That said, I might just settle for laser eye vision sometime in the future. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, and so I've got that in my head, and I think as long as I can keep that in my head, it'd be easier if I had a photograph to put on a wall to remember. But unless I start, copying and pasting out, images of some Robert Bateman, wildlife images, I'm not going to get anything close to what my mind was like for that. But as long as I can keep it in there, I'll stay positive no matter how under the weather I am. So I found that to be quite an awesome moment this week.
Cool.
And dreams technically didn't happen, so that counts as fiction.
No, I like that. Yeah.
The weird thing was is that after that happened, there was like somebody like a backpacker trying to, like walk their way through the park, and I'm like, it's a dream, but in my dream we're about like 5 minutes away from the sun going on the other side of the mountains, and things get really dark really quick in the mountains that way. And we got a spare seat in the car. I guess we should offer, the seat to the backpacker. Otherwise, they're going to be alone in here with the giant elk wandering around things in the middle of the woods.
You mentioned those giant elk. They never came back, eh?
Well, the elk was right there. I was able to have the elk in there. The elk it was like, I was there as part of humanity. The road was a strip of humanity in with nature. The elk didn't care.
Was it a herd of elk or just
one? Just the one, just the one stag with the magnificent, antlers on there. Yeah. Didn't care. It was almost like how you get those people talking about stuff like spirit animals. It's like,
yeah.
It was kind of like spirit that.
Cool.
Where it was just like, like you cannot do anything to hurt me. I don't care about you. You're not part of my world. You're just going through it.
That was what the animal said to you? Or
no,
you
that's
said
just the atmosphere the animal had. The animal didn't care that there was a road. It was like, heck, the size of it. What am I going to do with my car if I ran into that thing? I'd total my car. The elk probably wouldn't even get a scratch. But that's just the atmosphere the elk had to it. It's like I wasn't even there because I was not part of the elk's world. Because I was just going through nature. I was taking some photos. That's all I'm doing. The snowbanks were like 7-8 feet tall, but that's how they get in the mountain passes. That's not an exaggeration at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the big fun highlight of my week. Other news? I have in Minecraft altered my temple.
Okay.
I was never a big fan of how the stairs go from the towers to get out onto those little walkways up top.
Yeah. Do you have a wall all around your city, or?
No, I haven't gotten around to that part yet. But what I did for just the little temple was I carved a path down in each of the little stairwell areas. So that one way you can go up to the standard way, go from the main entrance up to the higher, balcony area, I suppose it is. But I took the inside portion and I carved in a little secret set of stairs going down there, and did proper lighting and all that. And I hooked it up together and put it into where the all the TNT is supposed to be. Got rid of the TNT, and I put in a nice nether portal. I am literally one spark of the flint and tinder, and 3 steps away from going to the nether. I am so close.
But you had to have a dream about going to the mountains instead.
No, that actually happened well before the mountains.
Okay.
What happened was that I got some money from my brother, my middle brother, who's never been on the podcast, Adam. He's like, well, I'll save you the money sort of thing, in shipping and all that sort of stuff, and just here's some cash, but you got to spend some of it on this game you mentioned. It's called The Secret World. I beta tested it before, and I loved it. And so it's like, well, okay. Brother says I got to do this, but the rest of the money I can spend however I want. I'm an adult. It'll be spent on bills. Whee! Birthday money. But yeah, it's like, it's like, okay, I get the Secret World, and then I spend the next 7 hours getting the proper updates for it and all that. And then, hey, here I am, now playing the game. I beta tested, and, I love it so. I don't understand why it's not a more popular, more well-known game. It's set in the modern sort of era, so hey, guns aplenty for anyone who wants it. You don't need to be level based. It's item quality based, and how much as you adventure you gain experience. Those experience points get you stuff to put in your skills for weapons, or how good you are for doing other little things. There's no actual level based. It's all technically just one long experience based thing. Mm-hmm. And if you complete enough quests, you can probably really advance on through this stuff. And I'm almost to the point where I was at the end of the beta testing, but I wasn't able to keep my characters, so I had to start all over again. So I created 2 characters. One was just like a random character. Okay, let's see, I kind of like this, and I kind of like this, and cobbled it up together. And I guess I kind of made somebody who looked a little bit like Kurt Cobain. Don't know how that happened, but whatever. I made that. And the second one is like, okay, I want to see how good the character creation engine is. So I pulled down. My wife's got a 6-pack of pictures she got from her last little party at work. And so I try and create someone who looks like my wife.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, see,
did you show it to her?
I showed it to her. She says it looks a little bit like her, sort of thing. It's not the best system. It's not like, okay, alter cheekbones by this and do that sort of thing. It's like you got 7 set, like, chin styles, you know, and that, and you can change color tone and eye tone and eyebrow stuff and all that. You know, hey, it's not bad. I don't mind that. But my philosophy is like, I'm going to spend umpteen, you know, like, potentially, like, near infinite amount of hours running around watching somebody's backside. Who better to watch their backside than my wife's backside?
I'm just wondering if, like, does she find that comforting?
Well, I am giving her proper clothing and attire, sort of thing. I mean, like, you have like 12 items to choose from for shirts for the females when you go. 3 of them are bikini tops, and there's another 3 that are basically a little more than jogging bras. So it's like, okay, give her a real shirt and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, she's I'm not, like, you know, doing anything creepy weird. Just like proper clothing.
Well, it is your wife, so I mean, that's the thing.
But here's the thing, my wife is not the sort of person to go running around in a bikini top, sort of thing. So,
if you ever have an excuse to make a scantily clad character in a video game, say, what? It's you, honey.
But if it's not something my wife would wear, then it's not keeping true to the character. It loses its,
Wait a minute, this pixelated character isn't my wife at all. It's just a video game.
But, no, I decided to have some fun, test out the thing with that, and so I deleted the other guy, because if I'm going to be going through the same map, it's going to be with the one person twice rather than 2 people once apiece. I'll go back to that starting area again when I'm on to other things. So it's like, I kind of wish I was back at that first area. I'll create a second person and go with another one of the main factions and see how that plays out. But I'm enjoying it so much. The atmosphere is great. I could spend an hour just listening to the NPCs talk about various things.
Oh, yeah.
Because each one, like, in the one area, you encounter, hey, the sheriff. And as she talks, and you can talk about a mission here, or, like, just listen to her dialogue options there, she repeatedly makes mentions about Jeopardy. Like, when she wants to put the, people's mind against the zombies coming in to the town of Kingsmouth, like, oh, I got reruns of Jeopardy on VHS. She is a fan of Jeopardy. Does that play into any plot points? Does that play into anything else? So that, no. That's just a character trait for her. She digs it. One other person on the thing there, she says, like, for my idea of culture is watching, Cheers reruns. Sort of thing. Doesn't play into any plot points or anything like that. Like, she quoted things like, I think I heard that from Oprah. So it's like, no, it's just a lady, like, she's had 7 kids, like a fisherman husband. And so, like, what does she do? She watches little TV. She likes the old stuff. She likes, classic Oprah. She likes
old people TV.
Yeah, she likes the classic, 20 years ago sort of television sort of thing. Well, okay, 20 to I guess 5 years, because Oprah retired only fairly recently. But yeah, it pulls her, like a strand of like a character in, and so she feels more like a real person than just like an NPC you get these quests from, and then go, kill zombies, burn them on her bonfire, and leave. So I'm digging it. I'm liking all the personality, all the characters, and I'm spending the time, rather than going about getting experience and getting new, fatter loot and upgrading my gear, to listening to what they have to say. And I just got to say something about it, is if you want to hear what they have to say as opposed to just, give me the experience, give me your items. And, I'm loving it. That said, I mean, it might also be because I love it because I don't have to pay any more money. If I want to upgrade to the various other issues that come out, the more, like advanced story arcs and that, I can either spend money for it, or as I was fighting some zombies and they're all like, oh, got a big pop-up, thank goodness I know exactly what buttons to push to fight the zombies without actually having to see the zombies to fight them. And it's like, hey, congratulations, you've done so much work here and you've done so much stuff, here's 1,200 points to spend in the store. I could buy some of the older, issues, not the current one. Apparently they have the right to get rid of these bonus points anytime after 30 days. So if I really want to just hustle it, get a lot of these points together, I might be able to afford one of the more recent issues. Or I could just spend it out on sweet, outfits and have, my character run around in sweet gear that you can only get at the store. Or buy a pet or something like that, just to make myself more of a character. I can do that. And it's nice to know that's like, okay, you paid the money, but we are a company that wants more money, so If you want anything else other than this basic experience, you got to give us cash. It's like, no. It's like, hey, congratulations, you've invested yourself. We appreciate that you're liking the game enough to keep playing it. Here's some points to spend in the store. Get yourself a dog to join you. You know, dog doesn't actually fight or anything. It just joins in with where you're running around. Get yourself a fancy outfit to make yourself look all dapper.
Well, it's all about pets and hats.
Well, you kind of. Because, I mean, the gear doesn't change. All the gear you get doesn't change what you look like.
Okay.
Except for maybe your weapons. I've got a book on my back and 2 claw weapons, 1 on each hand. Just because I wanted to try something different from what I did in the beta. In the beta, I was using, like, electrical magic stuff and a hammer. I was basically Thor in the beta. I was having some fun with that. But no, I want to try different stuff, and like, the only thing that matters is, like how slightly different the book looks and how many claws are coming out of my claw weapon. 2, 3, what shape are they in? Everything else is determined by what I go and I buy in the stores for outfits or buy in the, you know, like the item store for it. It's all cosmetic. And I'm digging that. It's a nice effect that way.
Would you prefer, like, some games, it's just I think I'm thinking of The Sims, is you just have access to all the different looks.
I was a little spoiled in City of Heroes by having all like I think it would be 98% of all the things you can get for clothing stuff was available upon the start. Before you even actually start, moment 1 in the world, as you're designing your character, you can go through all the options. You can that decreased down as they added more stuff in. So you can get but you have to pay for this, you know, expansion pack.
Yeah.
So I think come towards the end of the City of Heroes stuff, it was about 50-50.
Okay.
But yeah, the start of it was like 95%, and then there was some like, you've conquered this end game monster. Here, take a nice piece of equipment visual that you can't get any other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of nice. I do like that. On the other hand, there's not much to do with you don't get coins. It's called Pax Romana in the games for their currency in the Secret World.
Secret World, yeah.
Yeah, so you get so many packs, and you know, I saved up if I was to get 100,000 packs right now, because of my ranking with the Illuminati I'm a member of, I could increase my sprinting speed, so I don't have to sprint so slow. I can sprint even faster. Hooray! Gain 60% running speed instead of 50, and then I can increase that up as I gain more ranks. Or, you know, I could spend it on, you know, like different kinds of shoes and different color coats and stuff like that, and, you know, like, whatever the heck I want. If I'm going to be going to, you know, because Transylvania is one of the areas I'm going to be going to eventually. Transylvania, you know, depending on where it goes, it's not exactly the warmest area. Maybe I want to pack myself a little bit of a warmer outfit than, you know, I've currently got on. So I'm going to go buy some winter boots to make it look like I'm really running around in some sense. Because I got to say, I've seen people running around in some very impractical outfits for fighting zombies.
I think Transylvania is probably a very similar climate to
the east. Well, see, that's the thing is the first area is Kingsmouth, which is over in the New England area.
Yeah.
So you've got like the big fog issue to worry about. It's like, my goodness, the fog is rolling in and it seeps down into the bones.
They do fog in the game too?
Nobody can get in or out to Kingsmouth because of the fog. The only reason I can get in is because I have access to the hollow world of Agartha.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So it's basically a magical teleportation system.
Yeah.
Dig it, yo. So yeah, everyone else is trapped in there with the zombies and the various monsters. And it's, you know, it's like, hey, you know, it's the cold. I'm thinking like, I should get this character a long, you know, like a trench coat sort of thing to help, you know, protect me from the cold. Meanwhile, running down the street next to me is somebody in, you know, bikini top and short shorts and no shoes. I'm like, that is impractical for fighting zombies.
Like another player? Or
yes, another player.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, whatever, you play your game, whatever you want. I'm going to be having fun being like a realistic character in, or, you know, in like a fantastic setting sort of thing. That's the kind of game I'm playing for myself.
Yeah.
So it's like, but on the other hand, it's like there's another area where I'm going to be going to Egypt with my character one of these days. So it's like, yeah, the kind of outfits you wear in, you know, like, you know, New England is not exactly what you'd wear in Egypt. So maybe I should think about eventually, you know, like saving up some cash and get myself something that looks like a, you know, like a good, you know, like I can weather the heat sort of outfit.
Didn't they used to have, like, back in the day when games were like 2D platformers and stuff, didn't they have, like, when you go to an ice level, your character automatically would have a parka on or something?
Yeah, so a lot of the games did do something like that. So I'm going to be happy to make sure I copy that as close as I can. Maybe because of those games, maybe just because if I'm running around fighting zombies in like a swimsuit sort of thing, it's like, well, that doesn't really, put me into the game as much. That's just my character being goofy. That said, if I spent like 1,000 out of my 1,200 freebie points on like a plague doctor's outfit where you get like the crow sort of mask sort of thing there, it's like, okay, I'm a little weird, but it does seem like a good protection against somebody who's fighting zombies that are being animated from an unknown source. Trying to do a filtration system, make sure I don't zombify if I die. So, you can argue it that way. But Bikini Lady running next to me, well, what the heck are you doing here, lady? I
doesn't want to be encumbered by anything?
I suppose you could argue, it's like, I'm role-playing a situation whereby I was a character who got caught up in a certain bad circumstance. I haven't had the opportunity to change my clothes yet.
Yeah. But then, if you played like half an hour, I'm sure you would encounter a clothing store at some point.
Well, that's the thing is, you kind of got to go to a few places in the main travel hubs in the city, or the small town of Kingsmouth. There's not really a lot of clothing finding options. At least not. Although somehow I did get an extra coat somehow. I don't know where I picked that one up. But yeah, I got an extra coat, but that's okay because I'm wearing another coat right now. I'm wearing
bad zombies don't have it's kind of gross, but if you had no other option, you could steal a coat off a dead zombie or something.
You could make that argument for where I got the coat, but that's not something you can actually do.
Oh, they don't have that in the game.
No. They have an interesting crafting system, but you can't steal a zombie's clothes to craft your own.
Okay.
At least not yet. I'm sure they're always thinking something for fun.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if it might not be that kind of game, but yeah.
Well, that's the thing, because the equipment that you get doesn't change your visual appearance. What you're wearing is a very big thing of who you are. I see people, I've seen a few people running around in hazmat suits. I'm like, whoa, where'd you get that? I didn't see that one in the store. Where'd you guys get that one?
That's what you need for fighting zombies.
Yeah, man, I want your hazmat suit, man. That's a full outfit. Get up there. I want that.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to be a regular sort of person now. But, hey, I got a nice pair of, specs, on to put on. Not as spectacles, but actual, like mountain climbing shades. So it's like, yeah, my eyes are protected. No blood in my eyes now.
Good. Yeah.
I got a set of headphones on just because it makes me look cooler.
Okay.
It doesn't actually do anything. I look more cool and nonchalant.
Beats by Dre?
I suppose we can call it that. Yes. It technically predates on the game, but whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But I've been having a lot of fun with that, and actually segs into the topic for this week. This is the small town of Kingsmouth in the New England area, based heavily off of stuff of Lovecraft and Stephen King's works. And there's a zombie apocalypse sort of situation happening, but it's a small town of Kingsmouth. How can you get that many zombies? How many people would you say is in a small town, Josh?
5,000.
Okay, and let's say a 90% conversion rate, so you get some NPCs and people running away, people to save and all that. That's 4,500 zombies. That's not bad. Not exactly a full zombie apocalypse. And this town is not even that big a size. It's got 2 roads and 3 avenues sort of thing for the town, and then there's some other stuff going on in the neighboring little areas and zones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's where are all these bodies coming from? And here's the thing. A ship that brought in the fog with them came back with an idol, and the Drog come with it, and they're like Scandinavian monsters.
Okay.
And what they do is they lure you to the sea where you drown. Then they animate your corpse and toss their seed into you. You wander up into the, back, as a zombie, onto the coastline where you turn into a giant egg and out pops more Drog. That's their reproduction cycle. It's crazy, it's creepy, and it works really well for establishing whoa, I should start killing a lot of things here sort of mentality. And so you've got, and it's not just so you've got the people that drowned and came back, you've got these drowned fishermen. They're all coming up onto the shore now. You've got the recently dead townies sort of thing that are being eaten by zombies. But then you've also got the people coming in from the graveyard, from the church. And this is a town with history. Lots of very bad history. You've got the First Nations people that were not exactly told to just leave, but shot by musket and then just tossed away.
Died of plague.
The various other things, but they were disposed of, sort of thing there. And so that's one source of zombie bodies. Apparently 20 years ago there was a death cult. They got killed. Attempting to resist police. So in
the game, is the game set in sort of 2015 or?
Technically, it's the long shadow of 2012. The game started in 2012, and that's unless you go to the new issues, it's assumed 2012, and it goes on from there.
Do they use the idea of the Mayan apocalypse
as the start of the end age? I think not like the end year. It's the start of the end.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Like 20 years ago, there was a death cult and all there, and when the cops tried to bust some heads, they had to bust every head. But now, the cultists from the death cult, they're back from the dead, so they don't move as fast, but they can cast magic. And then, this is a town, that has it was a mine sort of thing, and there was some mine collapses, so they got some dead miners that had to get mass graved. You go back to the witch trial sort of thing. There's some bodies buried in non-consecrated soils that come back up as witch trial burned victims, and there's a lot of corpses from a lot of bad history. And so it's where are all these bodies coming from? And it's wow, you got a lot of dead people throughout history coming from all sorts of areas. So just off from what I've described, that's a handful of different zombie types. That way it's not always just people in regular outfits. Sometimes it's no, you can't take the clothes from this zombie because this zombie has no clothes. It's just a burnt cinder of a husk of a corpse. Because, it was from the 1712 fire that swept through the town, or this is from the witch trials that happened.
Do you know, that reminds me, when Europeans first started colonizing the east coast of America, the colonies, the first few colonies would just die out. They would just...
The survival rate was not anywhere near, considered what we would, if we have people dying on the colony mission to Mars, it's going to be seen as tragic.
Yeah.
But compared to going to the New World back in the day when that was a thing that people were doing, entire colonies would just get wiped out over the course of a winter because, I guess you guys didn't save up enough food. Nice foresight, pilgrims.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that happened is the colonization or the migration from Europe, it just kept on, happening wave after wave. So the people, the colonies, if there had been no, infusion, for, 100 years or something like that, they would have basically died out anyway.
It was basically a sink population until you hit some sort of, established mass for it to become a source population. To use my bio terms.
Well, exactly. And so, basically you're dumping people in. It's our colony for some reason just keeps growing. Well, it wouldn't if, it wasn't kept on being fed by Europe. And so you have that. So you're becoming the world's graveyard in a way. You're people come...
That is a very apt way of describing it for the first while, yeah.
And it's actually funny because I'm not sure if the United States has this at the moment. I think they might be equivalent. But if you took out the immigration from Canadian demographics, if you stopped all immigration,
our birth rate isn't 2, and so because it's less than 2, our numbers dwindle over generation.
Yeah, Canada would diminish in population,
and we don't got a lot per unit area anyway. So that's something.
So it's the world comes to Canada to die. And I think the states...
No, they come to live another generation.
Longer, sure, yeah.
It's a better standard of living than where they were from, and hopefully they'll produce 2 kids per parental coupling. Mm-hmm. That said, I'll admit I'm at fault. I only got 1 kid right now. I'm trying to do better.
You're trying to convince your wife to have another kid?
If we have another kid, it happens.
You're doing your best.
I will just enjoy the process of attempting to. If it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, well, I guess we'll just have to, get some immigrants coming on over to help bolster the numbers I was unable to provide.
Well, you, in marrying her, she's an immigrant, so... I don't know. Yeah, that counts. Like you
I suppose.
Well, you didn't attract her to Canada. She came on her own.
I was so sexy, I attracted her from halfway around the world. She didn't even know me, but I attracted her.
But in a way, you sort of, you kept her. You added her. You helped add her to the population. Let me put it that way, right?
Well, I say she helped enrich my life as much as
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. We're all in this together, aren't we?
Well, that's the beauty of Canada. Is we don't do the melting pot thing. We do the multicultural diversity, and I am still incredibly displeased with the first 3 decades of my life that I never had a chance to try some of the dishes she introduced me to.
Oh yeah.
There are some sauce mixes I would not have come up with on my own, like soy sauce and vinegar. I like soy sauce, I like vinegar, but I wouldn't think of cooking meat in a sauce composed of the two. But it works. It lasts weeks in the fridge because of the vinegar, and it tastes amazing. And it's so cheap to make. It's I went through all of my university years. I could have been eating really decent. Hey, this meat's for $2 off. I'll pick it up. I'll cook it up now and put it in the vinegar. And yeah, good food to eat for 3 meals. Haha. No, I didn't get a chance to experience that sort of food. So my life is richer now because, and that's why I make a character for in video games. So she can keep enriching my life even through fictional means.
Yeah. So you have people coming from a lot of different places and then dying, and then being able to, okay, now we can make zombies out of them. So that's, win-win.
In this case, yes. And the zombies keep coming back.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I'm recalling a scene from the movie Monster Squad. Don't blame yourself if you haven't seen it. It was great, but it's like a 1987, like Universal horror monster mashup sort of fun thing with teenagers.
Okay.
And the one bit they're talking about is the Wolfman. How do you destroy the wolf? How do you destroy a werewolf? And it's well, you got to kill him with silver.
Mm-hmm. Silver bullet.
So they put this theory to the test later on in the movie. Spoiler alert, I suppose. They put a stick of dynamite down his pants. It's lit. Boom.
Is this a cartoon? Or?
No, this is live action stuff. I gotta say, look this movie up just for the Gill Man. This is the best Gill Man since Creature from the Black Lagoon. The visual, artistic design, and monster makeup on this one has not been equaled for fish-based humanoids.
Well, what immediately comes to mind is Abe Sapiens from Hellboy.
Abe Sapien wasn't menacing. He was not a villainous sort of character.
He's a friendly fish. You're a friendly neighborhood fish man.
Yes. Abe Sapien is the fish man you can chat with. This is the fish man you will have to try and kill before it eats you.
Oh, cool.
But they put a stick of dynamite down the Wolfman's pants, blow him up. The body parts start shifting themselves and just kind of pulling themselves back together until the Wolfman reassembles. You can't kill him if it ain't silver.
Didn't that Wolverine had something like that too, right?
Wolverine never had healing like that. You could rip off a lot of his skin, so long as he's got blood source. Oh, unless he's touching. There was one time where he was touched by the Phoenix Force, in which case he came back from just a skeleton.
Okay.
But that was a very extenuating circumstance. He got hit by.
I feel like I thought I heard a story about Wolverine getting blown up by dynamite or something, and gradually the cells sort of crawl. I don't know out of the grass, and his blood kind of gradually.
Not that way. No,
Wolverine never came back that extreme, eh?
No. Well, I do recall him getting his face blown off by the Punisher, and for some reason that didn't heal for the rest of the issue. So he's going around talking all kind of weird with his skull head. I don't know. There was some sort of beef between the writers there. Then they did some nasty stuff saying about the Punisher. That was just really petty stuff both ways. I'm willing to strike it from canon if everyone else is.
Right. But a werewolf, So in Monster Squad, the werewolf comes back from being blown up by dynamite
because there wasn't silver sort of thing.
Could you lace dynamite with silver?
Yes, you could,
powder?
And that would probably work very well.
That's what. Yeah, I'll have to stock my my weapons with some of that silver lace dynamite.
Well, if you're fighting the supernatural, it never hurts to lace your shrapnel with silver. I mean, it's not going to hurt you anymore, and it could definitely help against whatever you're fighting, so...
I guess you'd want, some cold iron filings in there, some silver, some just every,
holy water, blessings.
A little bit of holy water in there, and just mix it all up, and then mix it with the...
I believe Hellboy does something like that with his bullets. It's an all-purpose, supernatural
garlic.
killer. Yeah. That's it. I mean, like garlic ain't gonna help me if it gets embedded in my skin. Just thank you. Like, the shrapnel doesn't need to get removed. It can just, get, like, infected, pussed out sort of thing, as per any, like, natural thing that gets in your skin. Yay!
I wonder if, like, in 100, 200 years, like, maybe if we have energy weapons or something, I wonder if there will be, like, sort of mythologies built up around creatures that are vulnerable to lead. It's like we stop using lead bullets, but then we're like, there's that monster that they made up in 2015.
It can only be hurt by projectile. Only ballistics can kill it.
Yeah.
How can we do that? All we've got is our laser weapons. That said, do you suppose the laser weapon, because it's like, like light, do you think like that would intrinsically hurt vampires? Because vampires seem to be the sun, but it's like, like, is it like just the sun being like a source, like a nice divine, blessed light, or is it just so much solar energy coming in that it hurts them?
I don't know.
Because I would like to see vampires versus laser weapons and see if are they like weak against them, because it's potent light.
Yeah.
It could blow through a regular person. You can bet it's going to hurt a vampire, at least normally.
Yeah, I wonder if the vampire, because the vampire has a lot of exposed surface area, and if like a laser would maybe shoot a hole through the vampire, but besides that, it's like, now I have a hole in me.
It'd probably sting. I don't know if it would stop them like it would stop us, but
because sunlight was like all over them. It's like their whole, like, every inch of skin.
Well, in that case, you just put like like a proper lens to instead of keeping it straight, you just like shoot it out, and that way it's not as like immediately deadly, but it's like sunburn.
Like a sun cannon. I like that thought.
Yeah, solar cannon, fire. Okay, now here's the thing. Because I was thinking about this as I was playing through the game this week, is I'm going to be going to the Romanian mountains. I'm going to be fighting vampires, and right now I'm in a place where there's zombies.
In the video game. Okay.
Yeah. Right now I am in an area where there's zombies. But you know what? In zombie movies, it's like, it doesn't matter if the zombies are, caused by the military with their, trioxin gases released, and it doesn't matter if they're like, hell is full, so now the dead walk the earth. It only seems to be just zombies. Where are the other supernatural creatures in a supernatural zombie movie? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, a bunch of like sexy young, 20-year-olds get stuck in a mall during the zombie apocalypse. Twist, one of them is actually a vampire.
Have they done vampires versus zombies? Is that a thing?
Well,
somebody must have at some point.
But here's the thing. I mean, with enough zombies out there, like, the vampire is going to have to be really protective of its blood sources, because, like, zombie blood, I imagine, is like, that's dead blood. Ugh. You're getting no vitality from that. So all of a sudden you get a vampire fighting on your side. He's going to need a nip every now and then. But it's like, dude, it's important to him as, like, any food source and light and all that stuff is to you, and so you've got the vampire. Who's the zombies? Do the zombies even want to go after the vampire?
I
imagine that, like, the brains and the flesh still qualifies as good for a zombie.
Well, I'm picturing the zombies sort of just not noticing the vampire, because the vampire has sort of a death. It lacks life energy. Maybe if the vampire is recently fed.
Oh, so the vampire is recently fed, and then yes, like, oh yes,
like, you smell like you
smell like fresh
vitality.
Meat.
But if the vampire hasn't fed recently, then it's like, just another.
So that's how the vampire goes out to get help, sort of thing in the movie. Then in this vampire zombie combo, it's like, okay, I'm so hungry. Okay, the zombies aren't reacting to you. Just walk on out, go get us some stuff, and come on back.
Yeah.
And just come back with 1,000 rounds of ammunition and Twinkies.
Well, if we're talking like a teenager that got turned into a vampire, therefore is not particularly powerful. If you have a really super powerful vampire, it's like, whatever, zombies, bash, bite, through them.
But the more you work out on that sort of stuff, the more you're going to need some energy, which I imagine, is fueled by partially the blood. So the more the vampires kicking arse, the more the people are going to need to be fed from. So one way or another, they're getting a bite out of them.
Okay.
But I mean, with a dry vampire, I'm going to use dry in the case that they haven't fed recently. A dry vampire, they just go out, get the supplies they want, come on back, Okay, there we go. Now, please let me have something to eat. I am really thirsty. I need a little bite. I need some blood in me. I'm going to go maniac if you don't let me have something.
I like the plot twist that could happen sort of towards the end of the movie, like, where the vampire does, like, feed. He's like, oh, finally, I got to feed. I'm so happy. And then, like,
the zombies
like, come in and, like...
heroic sort of sacrifice. I can dig that. Redemption, equals death sort of thing. So like the vampire helps out, but winds up getting fed upon, by the zombies once the fresh blood's in his system, or her, equal opportunity vampirism.
Yeah.
Just a thought I'd had, as I'm playing through. It's like, why isn't there other stuff? Like, and figure this. You want to go even more. Like, one of the characters in Kingsmith is a fake fortune teller whose powers become real with the fog. She starts gaining visions and all that sort of stuff. So like her fake routines becoming more authentic by the day.
Okay.
And magic's a thing that actually exists. So like, what happens if oh hey, we're trapped in the mall, but don't worry, we've got Madame Fortuna with us. And like can she do stuff? He's like, okay, now that the zombie apocalypse is happening, I guess kid gloves are off. Let's roll up the sleeves and let's show some real magic here. But real magic requires like magical stuff on that. What are you going to do with that? Well, I think vampires, a drop of blood from a vampire counts as powerful, so that way they're feeding off each other. The vampire's getting fed off for the magical effects that their concentrated blood provides.
All right, yeah.
And then you just include some people in with chainsaws, and you get one wicked, kill everything scene for, zombies are pouring in, but we're coming back fighting. Rah.
Fortune tellers with chainsaws.
Well, fortune tellers with magic, a vampire with his vampire powers, and dude with a chainsaw.
Chainsaw dude, yeah. You get your quartet, or I don't know.
It'd be a trio, and I suppose, you gotta have like a shotgun sort of person, and somebody like, hey, maybe a sniper thing.
Or a talking dog.
Ooh, okay, yeah, we'll put the talking dog in as a bit of a comedic sidekick in this movie. I am liking this movie, and trust me, if you are from Hollywood, please give us a notice. I want to make this thing happen. I am willing to sell this idea for free or almost free.
Almost free.
Enough to cover costs. How's that? But think about it. It could be an awesome movie. But yeah, just a little tangent I'd had.
Back to
Kingsmith.
Your point was that there are
by layering the town with
history.
History in here, you have not just one zombie to worry about, but like 6 or 7 types of zombies to worry about, and the various things that they wind up attracting. The Draug for their reproduction cycle. They got like a scarecrow reaper called Revenant that comes in, follows the trail of death. They're coming in there. Things have been pretty bad for a while, so apparently they got Wendigo in the area, and these things. Imagine like doing a crab crawl and then making it like an unholy, creepy beast. It's like, yeah, I want to kill that thing. So yeah, you got various different monsters in there, and all relates in with the one cohesive, layered history.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a land that has been repeatedly sort of invaded, and sometimes the invaders get killed or
they turn on each other, sort of thing. Like you're a witch, I gotta burn you now.
Yeah, and then sort of each time something happens, it leaves a little mark, or as you say, a layer or a strata. In thinking of geological terms, it's like, this.
Oh, trust me, they're zombies. Strata applies very aptly in this case.
Right. Yeah. Now, so like
that said, I am a little disheartened. It's only human zombies. I would love to have fought like some like undead deer or something at a certain point.
Yes, you seem to have a fascination with deer and ungulates of various.
I just find it a little sad that zombieism only affects people. Could you imagine having to fight a plague of zombie rats? Come on, don't say that doesn't sound incredibly scary. Oh boy, we're locked in the mall. The zombies can't get to us. And that's when the zombie rats who don't need to breathe start coming up out from the sewers, through the toilets. You can't even take a crap in peace for fear of the zombie rats coming up and getting you.
Yeah.
In the end.
I like it. They don't have to breathe.
So they don't have to worry about all the stuff that kills normal animals, sort of thing. So, zombie dogs, like that's a very good way to help spread the plague. Wild feral dogs in major cities, dogs and cats, they are a legitimate disease vector.
Yeah. Or can you imagine, the biblical plagues? It's like plague of locusts. It's just suddenly they just fly. They get in every crevice but now they're zombie locusts.
And so
they just coat everything.
Now here's the thing: if you keep smacking them enough, like until they're like a mush, because you smacking the locusts dead and all that, do they still keep going? Do they become just like some sort of like zombie blob, just kind of oozing its way down the street,
like of crushed insects?
Yeah, you just can't keep a good zombie down.
Yeah, wasn't this I want to say Swamp Thing, but I don't think that's right. But there was a creature that was sort of made of swamp detritus?
It was supposed to be Swamp Thing. He wound up, depending, it was like, initially he was a person whose mind got melded in, and then later on it's like, no, that was just something that you were made to think because of circumstances. You're really like a a plant elemental thing from like the green, and you are like the emissary of nature. Alan Moore wrote it, so it's worth at least looking into. That said, from what I recall, some of the images is like, whoa, this is graphically creepy, man. So yeah, but they have that stuff there too. I mean, I fought a few like mud elemental things that wound up coming up. I didn't even see them until I was effectively stepping on them. So my bad. They got some like constructs. A guy over at the scrapyard is somehow able to make his stuff come to life. He's not a bad guy, but you got to be careful with these things. They're pretty tough.
Okay, and you have to fight them?
If you can't dodge them, you got to fight them. And it's kind of a stealth mission being around them sometimes.
Yeah. So like in your D&D world, like if you're designing a D&D campaign, like a little city or a country or whatever, what a lot of people do is, and I think this is the way to do it, is just add event after event, just going back and back and back in time. And sort of, this happened and this happened, and just have each impact the landscape in some way.
Well, as the thing is I found what was really neat was that each area, for event for different types of zombie helps relate to a different part of the town's history. You got the initial colonization, where it was just a bunch of settlers coming in, and hey, you got your First Nations people there. So you get the image of what things was like then. Then you get the 1712 fire. Then you get like the Salem witch trials for the I believe it was 1800s. And then you've got your mine collapse, which happened, decades ago. You got your death cult that happened recently, and then you got your fishermen coming back from the ill-fated voyage, as of a week ago, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that you can see in your head, like the town at a different state.
Yeah.
With its various ups and downs.
Yeah. Now, this is something I sometimes fantasize about, but
at least imagine. I don't know if you fantasize about it, probably. It depends on how you want to take the term.
Yeah. If you go back, if you imagine sort of a human history that goes back, a million years. Well, technically, humans have been around a million years.
We didn't do much until the last 14,000, but, whatever.
Yeah, but if you can imagine sort of events happening over the course of, a million years, I mean, how many different sort of secrets could be, either buried in the soil or whatever.
Hidden amongst, because there's the zombies can't enter the church in Kingsmith, but not because of regular holy power, because of Illuminati wards from when the Illuminati got shoved out of Europe by the Templars and then set up shop before they all congregated in New York City. There's hidden wards. There's a hidden code in the town. You can find sigils and things if you look for them the right way.
Yeah. In D&D you can extend the history back even a long way. And
I recall. One of the things for the Eberron setting was it goes back 10 million years to the Age of Dragons, Age of Demons, and all this stuff, and then things start getting a little bit more compacted as you get more towards humanoid history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you look at some versions of H.P. Lovecraft, he'll describe sort of an age when just
the Naptotic manuscripts, which their age predates that of the Earth itself.
Yeah, and just weird things sort of crawl across the landscape and consume each other, and is just very
the primordial ooze upon which we grew from was caused as a leftover in the creation of the Shoggoths by the not the great old ones, but the old scientist ones, the ones that with the quintilateral symmetry. But the ones that came in out of there. So we're gonna bioengineer something to do our work for us, and then what was left over became life on Earth. It's we are from the leftover creation of the afterbirth of the Shoggoth.
That reminds me, I just read an article today. It just popped up on one of my on Reddit somewhere. There's an article about a volcanic island near Iceland where scientists found a lone isolated tomato plant just growing.
Where the heck did you come from?
Out of nowhere. And they traced it back, or they looked at it more carefully, and it was growing out of crap that an earlier scientist had taken there. And I don't know.
And just left behind because, as you do.
Well, I mean, some people are more careless than others. I hope that generally scientists are more careful nowadays, but this could go back, 50 years ago. Somebody just took a dump on this volcanic island.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to pack the stuff off with me, so, shovel a small hole, do my duty, wipe, and then bury it when I'm done. It's camping procedure.
Pretty remote, too, so it's not like you want to, nobody's going to see it, and it's not like you're going to ever come back there. So, yeah, scientists come back, I don't know, 40 years later. It might not be
What's up with the tomato plants everywhere?
Basically, they just found one, so I guess maybe it wasn't there for that long. Maybe it was only a couple years ago, but enough time for a plant to sprout and grow, and it's like...
literally from the waste of a previous expedition.
Yeah.
And that's a weird sort of thing, that the quirks of fate that lead up to different biomes and things happening on islands, which is a nice metaphor for a remote location. Why do things go about differently here than others? Well, just a quirk of fate, and that's kind of how it grew up out of. Mm-hmm. So that's a nice way of looking at why are things different in your city here? It's like, well, you go back 300 years to its founding, and they the only seasoning they had was like mustard plants. Everything else died in an early frost. And so that's why when you go to this town, everybody is big on mustard. You put mustard on everything there. Why mustard everywhere? Mustard seeds are kind of the thing that for so many seasons. That's all they had for seasoning for anything.
It's like the sacred mustard.
It's just like we don't even like it, but it's heritage. Can I put some mustard on that for you? It's tap water. Mustard up the water for you then. And so, yeah, I mean, ask yourself, especially when it comes to settlements, they mentioned this in 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, make it memorable. Make each settlement you're in something that people will remember, especially, once you realize, what is this settlement for? Is it just a passing through settlement? Is this, going to be a home base for various operations? And, how special do you have to make it? For a town, that you're just passing through, hey, maybe there's a festival going on, celebrating a local hero. That's all you really need. You're going for something like this is going to be a base of operations, go for something a little bit more, oh yeah, this is that mustard town. Everybody had mustard, everything on there. God, if I ever have another mustard-based food thing for my NPCs, I'm just going to throw it up and leave.
And another weird thing that seems to happen with, I don't know if it's just a quirk of how we discover archaeology, but there can be a giant complex of buildings, and this was a big deal of a city, and big buildings and everything like that, and then it gets covered over and buried or whatever, and then
especially in the jungle type areas,
yeah. Or even woodlands, or the United States.
The jungles tend to work a little bit better because you can lose a mountain of a thing in there, and it's this kind of fits in with the other mountains around the area. In a forest, you don't exactly get that biomass build up quite the same way.
Yeah,
it can happen, just not as quickly.
And you can look at that, and this was a center of civilization. Everyone for hundreds of miles around would be that's the place. They would all know its name.
This was the center of their world.
Yeah, and they would be that's our New York City, or our
London,
or Babylon. Or It might be Babylon. It might literally be something like Babylon. And then that declines, and then there's this village that's also there for starts up later. This is kind of just subsistence guys, living there for 1,000 years there, but just tiny little, they have no idea of the awesome.
What, that hill over there? I don't know. The hill's it's a hill. What are you talking about? It's always been there. Hills are on the ground. It's no, that's actually the remains of a great city of the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's a hill. Get it through your head. Hill. It's no, it's just buried over stuff, man. Any city that has got people in it generates a lot of waste, and yeah, we've gotten cities where we have to bury, our own city on top of it, and that's how we start. It's it was a flat plains originally. Mm-hmm. Now we're on our 7th generation of buildings, and we're on the top of a hill.
That's pretty awesome.
Way to go, garbage making people.
And I wonder too, we have archaeology out in the middle of nowhere. It's there's this awesome, complex. It's got this very complex culture. It's got all these, pottery fragments and everything. But then there are cities in the world that are sort of still, operational, functional, where people still live. So you can't really do that.
London, for instance, is the next
London,
one, because I mean that goes back to at least the Roman era, and likely well before that.
Yeah.
Londinium.
And there are places, little, like, sometimes they'll dig up to make a new development or something. They'll dig a big hole and they'll discover something new.
Look at this, we found like a 15,000-year-old elk skeleton, which
or
actually happened. I'm not just bringing back elk for no reason. They did find that I guess it would be 5 years ago now. It's like the elk no longer exists, but these things had like horns larger. Like if you're sitting at a table, look at that table. Each of the antlers was likely bigger than that table.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, and these things would just be wandering around. Like, can you imagine why they died out? Like, everyone wants those horns, man. Look at those things. Oh,
so
man.
basically humans killed them.
Well, that same reason the saber-toothed tiger is no longer around. It gets a little awkward to wear when it gets that size, and you can't move fast. Things became a faster, life.
Yeah, I don't think any other predator prizes trophies the way humans do.
No, we're kind of weird that way. Most predators just want to eat the stuff. So, yeah, they don't go back and collect trophies.
Yeah.
God, could you imagine that with a grizzly bear? You go back into the grizzly bear's cave, and it's just lined with hunters and deer skulls, just in some sort of weird ossuary style. This is the most cultured and scary bear I have ever seen.
Yeah. I'm
just going to avoid my bowels and back out of here, and I'm not going to tell another living soul, man. The story of the intelligent, like curio-keeping bear. Although ravens apparently do stuff like that. They'll keep shiny things.
Oh, yeah.
Not actual, what they kill, but, it just looked interesting, so I put it in my nest.
Yeah. Yeah, raven. Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
I don't know. But it makes me sympathize with them a lot more. It's like, hey, I collect little junk pieces, too. I think it looked neat, so I keep it with me, and now it's got dust all over it. So it's like, oh, I can understand you, Raven. You're cool. Let's find some bread to give you. What do I got for food?
I wonder if it's reflective. I mean, if they think it's like water, or if they pick it up because it's...
Well, it could just be that the males pick it up because the females find it interesting. It's like, hey, come back to my nest and look at all my shiny items.
So, I mean, yeah, that's another thing that birds do is they grow fancy...
feathers, the peacocks. Some of them build what's called leks, which is like a mound of sand with seashells and all stuff draped around it, and whoever has the best and gives the best display on it gets the most females. Huzzah! Mm-hmm. Or at least the best, quality females. Mm-hmm. So there's stuff like that. It's a weird, crazy world out there where you build something just to impress a lady so you can get good mate, territory.
Can you, would a zombie ever do? I guess zombies don't have to mate, but would they,
Jeez, I hope they don't have to mate. That's creepy.
Or would they...
Because someone would film it and put it on the internet. I don't need that. The internet's bad enough as is. Knock it off.
That probably... Zombie porn? Yeah.
I don't want to look that up. I'm going to assume that doesn't exist. Okay. I'm just going to be willfully ignorant.
But I wonder if zombies would, sort of build, gather shiny objects to attract humans or something like that.
Oh, to attract the prey thing, not as to attract, improve themselves as the alpha zombie, but to actually dig their prey through. Mm-hmm. So in that case, could you have a situation whereby the zombies will grab a child, but not kill or eat the child?
Oh boy!
But keep the child, okay, we need some more grown up. Shake the kid until he screams. That's a pretty vicious zombie, dude.
That would be disturbing, but I could see that being a thing in a zombie movie.
Horribly traumatized child. All he did was shake me and growl at me, and they smelled horrible.
I don't think audiences would like that very much, but...
But boy, I mean, there's some people that kind of root for the zombies in a zombie flick, but if anything is going to change your mind about rooting for the zombies, it's shaking and terrorizing a child to lure adults out.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it does mean the child doesn't actually get eaten, which is technically a better fate for them. I mean,
And the child could grow up to be king of the zombies or something
or just, horribly traumatized, like the alpha zombie slayer. Dude, you don't want to know what they did.
How about that? Tarzan was raised by what?
Apes.
Or who was raised by wolves? Was that
a few people?
Okay.
Historically, apparently. None of them ever got proven that way, but they said they were raised by wolves.
Okay, I'm trying to. I think Mowgli from the Jungle Book had a wolf adopt him for a while, and then
yeah, but that never actually happened either. So,
well, I'm not saying what actually happened.
Nobody was actually raised by wolves, as far as we can determine.
But that would be kind of an interesting pulp hero to develop. Would be the guy
just an
or
over the top
girl
crazy sort of thing, you know, like
raised by zombies. Like
they call me Brains, and I am king of the zombies.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be a good the pulp adventure?
I could see that being an interesting spoof. You could do it as an urban spoof of the Tarzan sort of thing.
You don't think it'd be good as a serious thing?
It would be a little difficult because
not
then you'd
that
have
pulp
to.
is ever serious. But
Well, no, but you could always do it because zombies would have to wind up feeding the kid for so long. And then the zombies have to find regular food, not just people to eat. Unless you're gonna have the kid be a cannibal. Which is an option.
We want to go really dark.
Which apparently, we could go so dark it winds up looping itself into hilariousness, like Refuge and Audacity sort of thing.
Yeah.
I am Brains, and I am king of the zombies.
Well,
yes,
I don't know if we ever got to the main point of the discussion, but I think we skimmed over it, which was that adding history to your world.
To your site, your location.
You can do it in layers.
Well, that's the thing is the layers add ripples into the thing, so that way you don't have just one zombie, you got 6 zombies. You don't have just one problem, you've got 7 problems going on.
So you can have 6 different zombie species with all with different origins, sort of.
And different things, like the fresher zombies, they move faster, sort of thing, and they tend to work in packs. Some of the drowned, like fishermen sort of stuff, there's only 1 or 2, but there's a chance of getting a drogue in with your pole. And then you've got the dead cultist leaders over there. They've got magic, and so they're an extra thorn in your side that way. Yeah. All leading up to different styles. There's one zombie that was breathing fire at me. I think it was a unique one kind of zombie. They kept respawning whenever I walked by the area. But, I had a fire-breathing zombie sort of thing. I suppose they were part of, the witch-burning thing and had some sort of effect. But, wow! Fire-breathing zombies, dude. Mm-hmm. And so that way you could give each zombie just say you just take, they're all the same basic zombie and each one has a special ability. I'll give, the spell casting, cult ones, one spell, or, one spell for 2 different types sort of thing, whatever. That way you got your cult leader sort of thing versus, your cult, acolytes. And, I got the fresh ones and they've got a faster speed. They're your runners. And then I got some big tank, and there's some weird, crazy giant tanking zombies you encounter every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And then you got your fire-breathing ones that are being burned to death. They've got sympathy with fire resonance, so fire-breathing zombies, or their touch burns you whenever they get. So each one has its own special effect, and that way it feels much more different than the fact that it's all that's different. It's one different little special ability to them. Mm-hmm. Stat-wise, they're all the same sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's something nice about that, because that way it doesn't get the monotony in there. If it was a one zombie everywhere I went, I'd probably not be as enthused about the game. But I was like, oh boy, I get to go down to the beach and fight drowned zombies and cultist zombies.
Yeah.
And all that sort of thing. It's just this way, it's not all just regular, fast-moving town zombies. Although anytime I go through town, they're around there. It's just whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, and then you spice it up with the occasional other sort of thing. You're like, oh my goodness, that's a Wendigo, or there's a will-o-wisp here. And oh my goodness, giant, creepy, sea monsters coming up over here. So you can say that the zombies are like your rice for your meal, but they don't need to be plain white rice. You can do a nice mix of whole grain rice, and you get your nice medley going on in there. And then, your fancy monsters and all that would be whatever you want to put on your bed of rice. There you go.
Cool.
And it leads to a much richer campaign, much richer style, and who knows how long before the players realize in your little campaign that it was all the same zombie with just one special effect for each of them.
Yeah.
It's like, God, I really hate these fire zombies. They're so creepy. Whenever they touch me, it burns. I got burnt hand marks all over me. Healing be darned. It's not going away for another week until the flesh gets, nice and regular again. It's still got that nice fresh flesh going on there. Yeah, I got marks. And I don't like the magical zombies. I want to be the only spellcaster around here. I don't want zombies, horn. I had to study for years. These zombies come back up from the dead and they're casting spells. That's not fair. So that way each one has their own thing, and that way you can mix them up, sort of thing. That way, like the wizard's going up against a spell-casting zombie, and over there, like you get a big old tough brute zombie, a dried-out husk that's really resilient, fighting up, against the tank. Mix things up. Make sure everyone's got something to fight, and does well, I'm okay with these guys, but they're really not, forte to me. Like, they got resistances out the wazoo, and I really don't have any, spells to counter their resistance or doing a different damage type to really hit them. So it's yeah, you can have some interesting fun with that. I mean, right now, the 5th edition zombie basic one has an ability whereby anytime it would be reduced to 0 hit points, it has to make a fortitude save. Oh, sorry, constitution-based saving throw. 5 plus damage done, or it has 1 hit point. And we tested that out, and you guys had a nice dickens of a time bringing it down to that 0 hit point. So it really worked well as a tank zombie. So you could say, okay, no, I want zombies a little bit easier to crumble, so I get rid of that ability, and I'll slot in another one of equivalent power. Mm-hmm. They've got, a nice little spell, that makes you nauseous. They are a stinking fresh zombie. They got putrescence about them. You get close to them, you will be nauseated. There you go. They crumble a little easier, but they make you a little worse as you're fighting them.
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah.
If our listeners have ideas or custom zombies that they've used in the past, or different ways of using zombies,
I do recall a liquid zombie I had in 2nd edition. I should probably update.
Yeah, but you can always write in with your helpful ideas. You can alert us to stuff that we have not mentioned, or you can just talk about whatever's on your mind. Just send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. And you can also chat us on Facebook at facebook.com/thesimulationist, and on YouTube.
We do try and go onto Facebook about once a day, so if you want to get a fairly prompt response, at least from me, Facebook is usually the way to go.
Yep.
So I'm putting that as my, gold star recommendation.
Yeah, and you can tweet at me at spaceboot1. That's spaceboot numeral 1 on Twitter. And I will, if you include me in the @ sign, then I'll be able to see that almost immediately. And what else? YouTube.com/thesimulationist. If you found us on iTunes or if you found us on Stitcher, you can always leave ratings and reviews. We would love to have those from you. But most of all, of course, is just let your friends, let other people know about the podcast. And if you enjoyed it yourself, then probably other people would too. And I certainly enjoy the podcast, so I want all my friends to know.
I keep doing the podcast if no one listened to us, but it's better if some people do listen to us and gain benefit from what we're trying to say every week here. So if you think hey, I think this guy brings up a good topic. I am tired of fighting the same monster squad every darn time. It's two's, one undead, 2 goblins, and an orc. And that's the 4-party pack that keeps coming against us. I want to show this to my DM and say, hey, mix it up a little bit. Maybe it's a different kind of goblin. Maybe they're extra small goblins, but they have more numbers. They swarm effect sort of thing. Let them know. Give it a try, man. Have some fun.
Absolutely. And I think that's all the things. So, I don't know.
Wrap up note. I believe I'd like to state, unless you're in a frontier sort of town setting, no city is a young city. All cities have a lot more age than any of your characters, unless you're an immortal race, like an elf or something like that in a human city.
Okay.
All cities have generations built upon them. It's like the garbage we produce historically. It adds layers, and if you want a city to feel like a real city, an old city, it's going to have that history. And just make up a few major events, and then fill in minor events as you so see fit. And just use that to add a lot of variety to the monsters you encounter in the area. And you don't even actually need to make it like a city. You can make this like a vast expanse of wilderness. And as long as you have history, if things happen, like a big fire swept through here, there's so many, centuries ago, somebody had trying to do a mining expedition that failed, and then you just keep putting events in, and then it's no longer just that giant expanse of forest your players have to go through to get from A to B. It's all of a sudden, hey, look, this is the area where the old mine was, and guess what? That's where we'll say maybe there's kobolds are living in there now. That's where the Kobold War started. They took over. They killed the human miners and took over the area. Or maybe they got they dug deep and then hey, guess what they found? giant ant colony. Now you got to worry about giant ants in this little area. It adds a lot more to it than just like, oh yes, this is a forest. No, this is the forest of whatever you're calling it. We'll call it the crawling forest. It's got history, it's got stuff happening in there, and by golly, every time you go through there, you're going to encounter something, but it won't be the same thing every time.
Right, very good. Cool.
Makes your setting come alive. It's the spice of life. Variety.
Indeed.
What do you have? Any final notes for you, Josh?
Final thoughts on history? I think I just agree with everything you're saying. I think adding layers of history is a really good idea. And yeah, like you were saying, even in a wilderness area, maybe 1,000 years ago, this was a bustling, countryside.
It would give a good excuse for why there's a dungeon in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, this used to be like the prime, temple grounds of the ancient city of previous culture. Insert here.
Yeah, but nature can, take over again. And I've always been I've always kind of liked the idea of sort of unknown cultures, like being in a place and
that's a nice way too. Is don't feel the need to include every bit of detail in your history. Sometimes just say it is the forbidden culture, sort of thing. This was the culture that was wiped all off the face of the planet as much as possible. Nobody speaks of it. It is a mystery to any living being now. Only the gods know what really happened there.
Yeah.
But sometimes their remains can be found.
Well, yeah, and that I like the thought because it's fun to discover. That's a big thing.
That's one of the main parts of fiction.
People like about conspiracy theories, the pyramids and the Illuminati and the
any conspiracy thing really.
Yeah,
it's all secrets.
It's like you discover something that sort of was forgotten or that people didn't know.
It's forgotten or just shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, where are all these questions popping up here? This is a mystery. It draws people in. It gets them thinking. Yeah. And if you can spread that over a couple, little, storyline bits there, it really adds a lot of memory for the characters. It's like, what is this? What is this seemingly infinitely deep hole we've encountered in the middle of nowhere? And then, hey, we found some old ruins from something here. Well, what kind of architectural style is it? It's insert, race that shouldn't even be here sort of name. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so there's a huge, rich sort of known history, and then there's also this huge, rich unknown history. And
unknown or covered up history. Sometimes, saying one or the other can really change things up.
Yeah. So that's that.
I like that. And I think that's I'm going to have a little extra time this upcoming week, and I've got a campaign city I'm going to be delving into for part of my focused efforts, and I'm definitely going to be applying it for my own. I'm going to be thinking more like, this city is a little odd in design, but what is its history? How far back? What different stages was it at? Who was here before? How was things back then? And how does that change things now? What added layers does that give?
Oh yeah, one other thing that's fun about doing history and stuff is people don't always build in the optimal locations. So maybe a city got built, in the bottom of a floodplain. And it's we lived here for 1,000 years and there was never a flood. Well, eventually there's going to be that big flood.
Weather patterns change. Next thing you know, there's a monsoon season every year.
Yeah.
And you want to find out about this city? Guess you got to start going spelunking now, because it's now lake such and such instead of city such and such.
Yeah, exactly. So locations can sort of shift, or you can have nearby locations, but it's like, oh, that wasn't actually a good place for a city, so they abandoned it or whatever. So, or
maybe they had a great spot for the city, and then when things went bad, they just kind of moved to the next nearby location. Not great a location, but you know what? It beats having to move several 100 miles down the road. It's like, you know what, this was a day trip just to move our stuff, and that's close enough. It's not the greatest location, but at least we're not in the bad city, and we're not traveling who knows where for who knows how long.
Yeah.
So that explains why sometimes you might be in and what are these people doing living here? Answer, check the history.
Yeah.
It provides answers.
Yeah. So, because one of this is advice you might encounter in doing world building is, cities need, well defensive area, but they also need access to water and trade routes in order to get other supplies and timber and so on and so forth.
Unless you somehow have like a magically self-sufficient city, in which case you can have like total isolationist, like Shangri-La sort of like mystical cities.
Yeah. So when you're doing your world building, you have to, well, you don't have to, but it's a good idea to sort of think about that sort of thing, like, where do they get their food? Either it's a natural source nearby, or it's magic.
Or it's brought in. What are they making the money to like import this food? Is that like a tariff sort of thing? Did they conquer these people and say, now you give us your food?
Yeah, that can happen. And then like if you find yourself like, I've drawn a map and I've said, okay, mountains here, there's a river here, and I've put a city here. I've just decided I like that spot for a city.
Looks like a good spot.
And then later on you're thinking, well, maybe that city's not close enough to that major river and this and that. You're sort of hemming and hawing. You're like, I don't know if I really should have put that. Well, no, you can invent a reason historically.
I'm sure a lot of people hem and haw like, God, why did they put the city here? It is so inconvenient.
Yeah. And then you could say, well, they did that because there was, this other place got wiped out, or it wasn't good enough,
or there was something that drew them to that location. There was some reason that said it's not the best place, but there's a reason we should be here. Even if people later forget that, if there's a special shrine or something, it's like, yes, there's a pilgrimage here. Then later on, it's like everyone forgets about it, and the whole thing's buried. The reason for the heart of the city is buried underneath the layers of garbage it produced over the millennia.
Yeah. And then from that point on, it's just a big city because people happen to live there.
There's enough people there to demand the draw. It's self-sufficient.
Yeah. So it snowballs. It's just the snowball city.
Inertia. Yeah. So I think that's been a nice thing to think about. Take the city you're in, or the nearest nearby large city, and look up its history. See, why did people settle there? What things have happened throughout its course? And, if nothing else, get a trip to the local museum, have a little fun, take a look at some of the stuff, pay attention, and then, use what you've done in your story, in your campaign arc, whatever you're doing, where you need some history, riff off that, build from it, and say, okay, it was kind of like this.
And if I can make one other thing.
All right.
One thing that's fun to do is you can, First Nations bands, like First Nations, literally nations, various of the nations will have their own like little websites or their own little libraries, and they'll have track of their own history. So you can actually find out about sort of in your area, or you can pick another area. But for example, like in Victoria, we have several nations. We have the Saanich, Songhees, the Esquimalt nations, and a few others. You can look up, you can find out sort of what the history of your area is from their perspective, and it's often very different from what you might have been, you might have already.
From your contemporary thing, it's a different world compared to what it was before the white man came in and said, "Hey, this looks like a great spot for a city. Plant her down here."
Yeah, and there was already sort of sometimes right there would be a settlement, or sometimes across the way, or sometimes nearby, but yeah. Or sometimes they would trade with each. Well, of course they would trade with each other. That's the staple of Canadian history. That's
the staple of human history. That may be the reason why we survived when some of our, cousin species didn't. We traded better. We were more social.
Yeah, good for us. Okay, so yes,
lots to think about. Lots of good areas to base your research from, and in this case, I can say history is the best teacher. Literally. Learn from the history.
Sure. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Take care out there. We'll see you in another 7 days.
I've been Josh Gillette.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
And send money.